Hello and welcome to this video for COMP3218 Game Design and Development at the University of Southampton. We are going to be taking another look at some of our students' courseworks. My name is Tom Blount and I am joined here today by...
Johan Marinov. I'm one of the demonstrators on the course.
Fantastic. So Johan, could you tell us a little bit about what we asked our students to do?
So this is their second coursework and they had to make a game, a narrative game around one of three fables. And what we are looking for in here is how they created the story engine and what techniques they used, and also how the story engine affects the gameplay and the gameplay affects the story.
Fantastic. Okay, so without further ado, let's jump into our first game. Okay, so this game is Nightly Ride to Nasyne. I don't know how to pronounce that, but it's a lovely title screen. So we've got like a little animation in the background. We've got some lovely sort of atmospheric noises and owls hooting in the forest. It's really good. So yeah, let's jump right in, I guess. Athelwald says, half of my stock has diminished over the past month alone. It is not good to dwell on bad events of our life, Athelwald. Just look around you. Your carriages are so lavish they are practically houses. Oh, is this us inside a carriage that is practically a house?
I'm not sure actually.
Okay, so we've got I guess a little sort of like introduction, cutscene, dialogue kind of thing, and we've got like a little choice we can make. So wouldn't we agree? Yes, they look delightful. Couldn't agree more. As I was saying, business has not been well of late. I am no man of the church, but this right here I would definitely call a curse of a god. Okay, bit dramatic. Strong words. I am not aware of the details of the situation, but surely God would not curse an innocent man like you. I tell you. So we've got the arrow to show who's speaking as well, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
This is exactly what God would do to a man like me. Pardon my intrusion, sir, but I do not believe that you know what God intends for any one of us. Sorry. What about you, boy? Do you think this is the work of God? So it must be, it couldn't be, or it's not up to us to say. Let's be non-committal.
Yeah.
This is the way you sound like a well-versed individual. Exactly. I am a priest, I work the fields, or I work at the graveyard.
Huh. Okay.
Sort of character building. I like that. What do you fancy?
Maybe try to be a worker in the fields.
In the fields, okay. That's lovely. Do you come for Nasyne for work purposes then? Just for work, I'm going to see my betrothed, or sightseeing.
I mean...
Yeah?
Let's try... Yeah.
Yeah, let's try this one. Say, do you like... So that's interesting. So sort of, you know, slightly non-committal response, so a nice way of sort of merging some of those different things regardless of what we say. Do you like the art of music? Sure, why not? What is your favourite song? I feel like this is a bunch of sort of like false agency choices, like none of these necessarily matter, but...
Yeah.
So do we like the crying wolf, the praying mantis, or the screaming raven? Are these metal bands or what?
I'm not sure, so...
I'm gonna go for the screaming raven, that sounds rad. This conversation will be remembered. Nice. The song reminds me of a terrible incident I had at a royal gathering on my estate. All of the lords were gathered in a look. So again, I wonder if this would happen regardless of what option we picked, or whether there's a different incident it reminds him of. So that's kind of nice, sort of managing agency, sort of hinting at things that are going to be sort of carried forwards. Okay, so here we are. I guess, is this a sort of medias res cutscene of the event? Oh no, it's not a cutscene. I have control over what's going on. Lovely. So I can wander around. I don't know what the controls are because they've not included that, which is a bit of a shame.
There's a black square on the right. Is that... that's probably just...
Do they mention anything in their game notes about how I can... Oh, there we go. Spacebar. Spacebar is how I talk to people.
Okay.
What a wonderful mansion you have. I must admit I'm kind of jealous. Okay. Recently I read of a legend from the tribe of Makola. They speak of a night creature known as the Skier. Said to come to those on the verge of death. A terrible last image to remember, if I might say. I'm just going to drop the sound slightly because there's some lovely sort of background music, but I don't want it to cover up what we're saying. How about you two? What have you got to say? Lady Aveline seems a bit off today. Oh no! Foreshadowing. Yep, there we go. There's the horrible scream. Lovely. Aha, so we can actually sort of leap through this. I feel like that scream was probably quite urgent, but we might as well speak to this person before we leave. Would you perhaps be interested in the prosperous sport of snail racing? No, not really. I wonder if anyone will mention... No, they just sort of repeat their same dialogue, so they don't mention that there was a horrible scream.
Yeah, that would be a nice...
It's like, my god, what was that? Kind of.
Yeah.
It's all very dark in the rest of the mansion. So I guess this is sort of like slightly, what's the word? Like exploration-based gameplay. We've got to find out what's going on. Can we go? Can't go up here. So
yeah. That's a very big mansion.
Whoop, there's a thing. Something chasing me, watching me, waiting for the right time to strike. It was always there, and yet it wasn't. Some sort of ghostly scarecrow. Ah, okay. I guess we have to not get caught by the.
Okay.
Another example of managing agency. We can't progress until we've spoken to enough people.
Yeah.
Interesting. So last time we spoke to this person and then we immediately got the scream. So is it just we've got to get... Yeah, we've got to speak to at least 3 people and then scream.
Ah.
Okay, so now I have to avoid ghostly scarecrow somehow. Alright, so I guess while I'm playing this, shall we start looking at the mark scheme and sort of talking about where we think things fit?
Yes. Let me pull it up. So we have the first...
Yeah, the first thing we're going to be looking at is the overall quality of the game, so...
Yeah, the presentation.
Yeah.
Like information design and aesthetics. And it does... So the game art looks like it... looks like it fits in the... Like there's nothing out of place, in my opinion.
Yeah, like it looks fine. Like there's sound, sort of like as the dialogue pops up. There's that scream from earlier. There's sort of background music and things like that.
So in this case, key information is shown clearly with the dialogues and everything.
I would say that there's like some bits of information design that could be improved. So for example, like, obviously the controls weren't clear. I had to sort of find that out through experimentation.
Yeah.
Also stuff like, you know, which bits of like the fact that there's a door here isn't super obvious. So maybe sort of, you know, even just like a little sort of contextual pop-up or just making it look more obviously like a door would be great. But otherwise, yeah, the sort of overall aesthetics work really nicely. There's sort of like lovely animations in the background. All of the assets seem to fit together. The music's sort of well done. Yeah.
Any audio effects?
Yeah, so like I say, there's the scream, there's some background music, there's sort of noises as we get the text. This bit's proving a little tricky for me.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a shame that we have to talk to everyone again just to get back to it.
Yeah. So in this case, a good would be key information is shown clearly, graphics are consistent, appropriate use of audio. And
so
I think
mostly we're there. I think maybe the information design is a little bit lower, but I think some of the other things might be a little bit higher. So for the sake of argument, what would one above that be?
So key information is shown clearly, consistent and appealing graphics, and good use of audio.
And I think...
So in this case, the only difference is that the graphics are consistent and appealing.
So I think we're probably there for most of it. What do you think?
Maybe between good and excellent?
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so
the next criteria is gameplay, mechanics and controls.
so yeah, sort of like what the set of mechanics is. So at the minute we've got going around finding items.
Can you try to get into one of those doors, or are they locked?
So they're locked. There's a spare key to the bedroom here. When I go to this door, it still says it's locked, so I'm trying to... Oh, whoop, nope, see, there's immediately a ghost in there.
Oh.
So that's not helpful. And it can go through things and I can't. So, yeah, handily we're talking about gameplay, I guess, because like there's definitely an interesting set of mechanics. So we can be chased by the ghost, we can go around and talk to people, we have to find items to let us in the rooms.
Yeah, and at the beginning there was
yeah, sort of
dialogue
like
options.
You look.
Yeah.
So there's definitely like the possibility of meaningful play here, like, but I guess sort of the balance of it is a little bit off. That it's not really letting me progress. Like I say, the ghost can go through sort of walls and furniture and stuff, and I can't. And this is a very narrow hallway, so it's quite difficult to avoid it in a lot of cases. So hang on, this one's locked.
So in this case, a good would be a set of complementary mechanics and smooth usable controls that leads to meaningful play.
I mean, the controls are smooth and usable. Like I say, I think it's more sort of the balance of the environment, I guess, that sort of hinders it a little bit there.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
Well, it does, yeah, so it does lead to meaningful play, but yeah, well, let's say it's around good in my opinion.
Okay, and I think I agree. I think, I'm getting a bit stuck on this bit, but I think overall it's good. There we go. Athelwald. There we go, I made it.
Ah, okay.
Okay, so the next bit I think is bugs, right?
Yes. So I don't think I've seen anything game breaking.
Yeah, I mean, I've not seen any bugs yet, other than, like I say, so I guess the balance rather than the thing. Okay, so we've got a bunch of flashbacks to different characters. Whoa, she's speedy. Look at that. So, yeah, again, those sort of controls perhaps maybe not as smooth as they could be. Or maybe they've just upped the walking speed because there's a lot of walking to do in this section.
Something feels
Got
wrong.
like an internal monologue. That's kind of nice. I don't know which one our house is, so I guess we've got to explore a bit more. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so we've not seen any bugs yet. The game seems reasonably complex. I think so what would an excellent be, for example?
An excellent is a game is playable and it's reasonably complex and there are no obvious bugs.
So I think we mark it down as that, unless we find something later.
Yeah, sounds like.
So next we're going to be looking at the how well they've met the brief, so sort of particularly the story engine, the agency, and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So yeah, the first one is story engine.
So this is about how the narrative affects the gameplay, how the gameplay affects the narrative.
Yeah. So let's see. They have dialogue options that I suppose they affect the gameplay later.
Yeah, so we get sort of little
Yeah.
hints that like certain narrative choices we've made are going to be remembered later, although we've not
Yeah,
necessarily seen.
exactly.
Okay, interesting. Sudden drama. So we've got whose story do we prefer? This, or this? That's what is happening. Which I can't click because there we go. Perhaps answer me this question: what do you think of Athelwald? The greedy merchants does he deserve a happy ending? Ooh, interesting. You know, no, sure, why not? Huh.
Heaven.
Let's be contrary. Let's say yes. Do we just? Ooh, this took a dark and interesting turn. Yeah. Yes, I do. If you believe so, then it must be. If it makes you feel better, I have also asked the other two passengers what they think of you. Athelwald thought you deserved. Oh, I'm
Wow.
Wow. Yeah. Oh. Okay.
Oh wow.
Never mind then.
Why?
I wonder why. So you've got the little report they handed in with their game files. So hopefully in there is their sort of overall story structure. So we'll be able to see how those branches happened.
Yeah. We are here after this.
Okay, so yeah, I guess let's sort of like explore some more of the story before we start talking about the story engine proper. You may drink of the forgetting waters and live in eternity in the apathy of Nasyne's void. That is the fate of those who obscured justice. Okay, so that's the entire story that we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what to make of it. That was a very interesting ending.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why the guy said we should be damned eternally. I'm pretty sure we... Oh, okay, maybe if I say that. Let's try and suck up to Athelwald, just to see.
Okay, yeah. And then be a priest. Or...
I don't know, yeah. Which would he prefer? Let's be a priest. I'm going for work. Oh yeah, so it looks like some of those choices that we looked at before, they do just sort of like immediately merge back together, regardless of the answer. But again, it's nice. It lets you sort of characterize yourself as a player. Let's pick a different one. Praying mantis.
So it's yeah.
Yeah, which makes sense that it sort of joins back there. It's kind of a shame that they don't... I was going to say, like, even if there sort of like are like meaningless choices, like what's your kind of music that you like or something. I guess in a sort of longer game or something like that, where it's more fully fleshed out, you could have people sort of directly refer back to a thing that you mentioned that you liked, even if it's otherwise meaningless.
Oh yeah, yeah, that would be...
Okay, so yeah, now that we've seen the entire game through, and I'm going to be stuck on this bit again for a little while, what do their game notes say about their story engine? So sort of, where do they say that it's affected narrative affects gameplay and vice versa?
So they have... The game is based on survival and exploration. The game tells the story of four strangers. So the player soon notices that there are similarities among the stories that are told, and that there's a monster between them, between all in all of them. And how does the narrative impact the game world? So the texture, sound, and behavior of the monster are entirely dependent upon the conversation choices that the player makes. Wait, we did choose the screaming crow, and it was a scarecrow. Did you see the monster now?
Ah, I did not. Was it?
Maybe it would have been different.
Maybe.
Because we chose a different thing. Yeah, so they say this is not visible at first glance because everything happens behind the scenes. However, someone who plays through the game a bunch of times while making different choices between walkthroughs will start to see the pattern. In particular, there are three crucial questions that determine the monster entirely. Each combination of answers to these questions leads to an entirely unique monster. Interesting.
That's interesting. So, as in the
And
monster sort of at the end of the story, or just the one that's chasing you in that section?
I think it's the one who chases you, yeah. Because
Okay.
you chose to be a worker in a field, and it's a scarecrow, which
Oh, I
is
see.
normally in the field, for example. So I assume now that you're a priest, it's something else. So they also say that there's a hidden likeness factor in respect to every character to almost every single question. So almost every single question impacts. So let's see what the passengers.
Oops, he still thinks I deserve eternal punishment. Okay.
Okay, yeah, so every character votes for whether or not you will get to heaven, just like you voted for them at the end. So in reality, the true ending can only be achieved if you maintain a diplomatic stance towards everyone. In other words, if you are kind towards them.
I thought I
Uh,
was. Like, especially in that one, I was deliberate. Okay, well, let's go through it again and see. Okay.
and so how does the game world impact the narrative? Uh, it, so okay, if you explore enough during the playable levels, you will be able to read through secret documents regarding each character and essentially uncover secrets about them. These secrets will give you an insight as to who they really are and unlock special conversation options. The first secret, for example, is Adelwood's letter, which can be found in his room at the last room in the corridor of the top floor. Finding the secret will uncover Adelwood's unhealthy relationship with Lady Aviana, thus giving the player a possible incentive as to why Adelwood could have killed her.
I
So,
see. Okay. Does that affect the sort of dialogue or anything later on?
yeah, so I guess if you've managed to find the secret, then you get different or new dialogue options that you can choose to use.
Okay, so that's very.
And
So,
they,
sorry, go ahead.
yeah, and I guess they give you a different ending.
Okay, so we can definitely say that gameplay changes the. Oop. Okay, so that was still a scarecrow, despite me picking a different combination of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
What was I saying? Oh yeah, so gameplay definitely affects the story. So if we find, the correct pieces of evidence, it will change sort of the outcome of the narrative in some way. Cool. So we definitely have the story engine that works in at least one direction. The narrative affecting the gameplay. So in theory, according to the notes, picking a different combination of questions affects this monster that we have to avoid.
Yeah.
And I mean, while it kind of... So, I mean, it doesn't seem to based on the questions I picked. Maybe it changes its behavior or something in another way. But the fact that it's, like, massively not connected to anything, like, sort of what music we like, what our job is, and then it being a different monster in this memory, doesn't really sort of, like I can kind of see what they're going for, but it's not really a particularly strong link between the story affecting the gameplay somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like
So
it's not like we've made a choice to face this thing because of our character's personality or background or anything like that. It's just sort of a very sort of hidden behind the scenes kind of thing.
Yeah.
But okay, so let's say, what would a good for story engine be?
So we have an effective story engine that is integrated with the game world. That is integrated with the game world. There are some examples where the story impacts the game world and is impacted by events from the game world. So we already discussed that there's definitely one of those.
Yeah. Okay, so that sounds about right to me. So one of the things I guess we haven't talked about is what fable is this one actually based on?
Yeah, what fable do you think it is?
I honestly don't. So there was. I'm trying to remember the ones we asked them to base it on now. There's the Lion and the Mouse, which I don't think it is. There's the Crane and the Wolf, which I guess it might be. And then there's the. I've forgotten what the other one was.
So why do you not? So why?
So
The
the Lion and the Mouse is all about, doing a good deed for somebody that, you don't think is going to be of any help to you, but then it turns out that kindness is paid forwards kind of thing in the end. And I don't know, this just doesn't strike me as, like, we're not particularly doing good deeds. In fact, we're more sort of, revealing bad ones. Is that what they say they've based it on?
Yeah. So it's the Lion and the Mouse, and what they say is to get the true ending, you have to be kind towards the other people. And it's inspired by the Lion and Mouse, since in the end of the day, your kindness through words decides whether or not you go to heaven.
I mean, I don't think that there don't seem to be many opportunities for, like, doing a good deed, or, like, even in the dialogue, there's sort of a do you agree with this person or not kind of thing. I guess sort of like the final choice, like, do you think they should get into heaven? Perhaps, but...
Yeah.
So I think that's not under this section of the mark scheme, though, is it? That's more under sort of thematics and that kind of thing. So I'm getting ahead of myself a bit. So let's nail down the story engine bit. So sorry, a good would be.
Yeah, so an effective story engine that is integrated with the game world, where there are examples of the story affecting the narrative and the narrative affecting the story.
And I mean, I think they are there. So, like, what would an excellent be?
An excellent is an effective story engine that is well integrated with the game world, where there are many examples where the story impacts the game world and is impacted by the events from the game world.
So I'm not sure it quite reaches that. I think...
Yeah, it's either good or between good and excellent.
Yeah, I think it's probably closer to the good, just because there's, like, the relation between the story affecting the gameplay is a bit arbitrary at best.
Yeah. So that's a good. The next marking criteria is the agency.
Cool. So this is about the choices we make, whether they're meaningful, how they sort of manage agency through the use of false agency and things like that. And I think we've seen a number of well, actually, no, a number of things that I assumed were false agency, like the, what's your favorite kind of music and stuff like that, turned to actually have sort of an important impact on things, which, yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about. But they sort of manage agency through other means as well in a really nice way. So the, for example, the party, we can't progress to the rest of the house until we've spoken to a number of different characters.
Yeah.
So that's a really good way of doing it. Also, I'm still confused by this storyline, because, like, this over here is us, right?
It looks like, yeah.
Like, it's one of these things where I can't tell if it's just they were working from a really limited pack of sprites, or whether, like, that's really important that, hang on, this person's us, isn't it? Dun dun dun.
Yeah.
Like, are they both imposters?
I mean, from what she says, I don't think it's the same person. Because I would feel she would be like, that was me, that in front of me, how can that happen? Yeah, so the agency, yeah. A good would be an interactive story with several branching points, which it looks like, yeah, it has some part of that.
I don't know, because I've picked a number of different choices, and I haven't seen any necessary, like, evidence of that in the game. So I mean, they've certainly talked about it in their report and sort of in the structure of the story they've presented. But, like, certainly I've not been able to get either one of them to try and say that I don't deserve to be punished forever.
Mm. Did you try to find those secret?
Oh, that's right. So I looked for the one in Athelwolf's place and I couldn't find it. Did they mention where the one in Maria's place is?
No. Maybe in the narrative structure.
Okay. Well,
No.
I'll try and look, but again, that floating scarecrow is.
So they have, yeah. So it would be interactive story, several branching points, interesting choices, some interesting choices, and a few attempts to manage player agency using topology, narrative patterns, illusion of choice, etc.
So this is the thing. I think their management of agency is quite good. So the way they've tried to select, different like merging and branching points, the way they have like managed physical agency in the level.
Yeah.
But, I don't know whether the choices involved are that interesting, and it goes back to that sort of slightly arbitrary disconnect in the story engine, talking about sort of who we are and what music we like is sort of good and characterizing stuff, but it's not an interesting impact on the story.
Yeah.
I guess we can sort of whether we believe or not this person, but again, that's not really having a massive impact on the story. It's more sort of just progressing the conversation. I'm going to see if I can wander around and find the monster this time, because I tried to deliberately pick some different options. Weirdly, I can't see any monsters this time.
You're lucky.
That one's locked. That one's locked. I should have picked this kind of these questions before. Aha! I found the secret. Excellent. There we go. So I found. Oh, there we go. There's a skeleton. Or it's the same scarecrow again. So again, that's. That doesn't seem to have had an impact after all. So now I've got to see if I can get that letter and manage to
get to the end.
Escape. All right. So let's quickly do that. Okay. So for the agency, let's just have a look at what satisfactory would be to start with.
So satisfactory is an interactive story with several branching points and some interesting choices.
Okay.
And in this case, it doesn't mention anything about managing player agency, which is in good.
Okay, so that's the thing. I think, interestingly, it's like they've done the sort of slightly harder thing of managing the player's sort of agency as they tell the story, but the story itself is maybe a bit lacking. So perhaps between satisfactory and good then for that.
Yeah, sounds about right. And next one. So the next criteria is design element, and the sub-criteria would be poetics.
Oh, sorry, I just realised that they're dead, right? That's why they're in this carriage travelling to wherever, because we're travelling to the afterlife, and the people in the person that I was playing with wasn't this person. This was the person lying dead on the floor. That's nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's see. Poetics. A good would be narrative and gameplay complements one another, as the key mechanics are in keeping with the themes of the story. So, as you said, it could have been maybe done a bit better, where you actually know you're helping, or not just being kind with the other person and the other people.
Sorry, I'm sort of distracted trying to
Yeah.
see if like any
Yeah,
of
I'm
these things
also-
have an impact. Like, because
Uh,
finding that secret evidence, see, still eternal punishment, and no real mention of that secret bit of evidence we found.
Did you find the evidence and then
Yeah.
end it?
Yep.
I'm not sure.
Okay, so yeah, in which case maybe we say that the agency is, we'll call it satisfactory, because I've not seen particular evidence of like some key branching points there, which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah.
Like it definitely looks like the story is set up to accommodate for them, but I can't seem to find them as I'm progressing through. But okay, yeah, the thematics and things like that. So yeah, they say that it's all about sort of being kind to people, and again, okay, so whether or not that I think the theme is sort of strongly brought across, do the mechanics support or contradict with it? And I think they probably do lean towards supporting it, because it's all about, you know, negotiating through conversations, trying to appease people and things like that. I think maybe there are like other ways that they could have done it, by maybe sort of incorporating some of those having to do a good deed into the more sort of, you know, traditional gameplay portions rather than just the narrative. But I don't think they sort of directly are opposed with each other, at least.
Yeah. So let's see. Narrative, good, as I said, would be narrative and gameplay complements one another, as the key mechanics are in keeping with the themes of the story. And satisfactory, for example, would be narrative and gameplay do not interfere with one another, but the key mechanics have little to do with the themes of the story. It feels like it's either between them or it's good, depending on how you view.
Yeah, perhaps between the two then.
Yeah. So the next one would be techniques.
Okay, so yeah, things like, you know, cutscenes and sort of narrative trees and foreshadowing and lepsis and all that kind of thing. And I think in that they've done quite well. So we have we sort of find sort of environmental storytelling. We find secret clues that hint to certain things. We have the sort of more sort of cutscene based sort of dialogue trees at the start. And we've got the sort of flashbacks and well, not flash forwards, but sort of playing around with the time of the thing. I think that's kind of a really nice way of sort of telling and revealing the story, and it's one of those things that sort of like when you play through it again, you sort of go, hang on, wait, no, that is us that's dead. Yeah, it's the Scarecrow again. I don't know whether it's just its behavior it changes or it's
maybe. Yeah, so a good would be
yeah, go ahead. What's a good?
Ascending pacing with a clear final peak and use of more than one game writing technique, like dialogues, in-game information, scripted events, cutscenes, in-media, res, lepsis, etc.
See, that's the issue. This also encompasses the pacing, which I think maybe this does a little poorer at. Like, there's not really a clear... There's sort of a clear... There is a bit of a peak at the end, but it's not sort of a particularly clear climax. Although it does... No, it's got a bit of a dramatic twist, you know. The person you're riding with snaps their fingers, the other characters disappear, and you have this sort of sudden, I guess, revelation. The pacing that builds towards it, certainly in terms of the gameplay, isn't sort of as sort of strong as it could be, but the sort of narrative builds, you reveal slightly more things. If you notice some of the hidden clues, that sort of builds it. So I think there's definitely some attempt at ascendant pacing.
Yeah.
I don't think it's got sort of the multiple sort of key... Yeah.
So satisfactory would be at least one game writing technique.
What would satisfactory be with regard to the pacing, though?
Some ascending pacing and use of at least one game writing technique.
Okay, so I think for the pacing it's probably around there, but I think the strength of the game writing techniques they've used probably pulls it up to a good.
Yeah. So I'll write down a good then.
Yeah, okay, so lastly for this one is feedback. So we asked, or rather we gave each set of students some feedback and we asked them to respond to it. So what did they say the feedback they got for this was?
So the feedback we got suggested that we shouldn't keep the likeness factor entirely hidden, and that is why we included a message saying, "This conversation will be remembered." Which, yeah, that's a nice touch.
Yeah, sort of
makes you think.
Like inspired from things like Telltale games and stuff.
Yeah.
Again, it's the issue with it, I guess, or a thing that they could have done to improve that even further is sort of when that thing has some effect, is again sort of like notifying the player or sort of relating it back to what's happened, because just sort of slightly arbitrarily changing what monster you're facing based on what song you like, the player won't make that connection that, oh, this is how my choice has affected things.
Yeah. Also, the other point feedback that they have responded to is it was also suggested that the player must not be too scared of the monster to explore further, and for that reason we have added the secret documents right next to where the key to progress the story is supposed to be, or in safe areas where the monster cannot attack them, making it easy for them to find them even by accident.
I don't know if that's true. So I don't know if that's referring to perhaps a different version that they've got. But when so the secret document is in a different room to the key, and I've definitely been attacked by the monster in that room. So there's something slightly odd about that. But okay, so taking the first bit at least into consideration, I think they've articulated what they sort of set out to do fairly well, and they've made some changes that do go in the right direction, but they possibly haven't gone sort of far enough with that kind of helping the player make the connection between, you know, their actions and the consequences.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely. It could a bit more could have been done, maybe, in that sense. So good is feedback was articulated and reasonable changes have been successfully made. And satisfactory would be feedback was articulated and some changes have been made with partial success.
Yeah.
And do you think it's satisfactory? Or maybe a bit?
So tell me again what's satisfactory. I was distracted listening to that guy telling us about the legends because I wanted to see if it changed the description of the monster as well, but it doesn't seem to.
Yeah, so satisfactory is feedback was articulated and some changes have been made with partial success.
And yeah, I think it's definitely there. Again, slightly odd that the second piece of feedback we've not seen the evidence of that being implemented. So, but
maybe
the first
it's
bit
in the second story. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first bit, yeah. So.
But yeah. Okay. So let's. Yeah. There we go. See.
Yeah.
But okay. Yeah. Let's call that a satisfactory, and then we better move on because we've spent a lot of time on this one.
Yeah.
Excellent. So let's move on to our next game, and this game is Revenance. Revenance, not Reverence. But yeah, lovely title screen again, sort of like little animated background, sort of nice painted backdrop. Ooh, even animated buttons. Lovely bit of polish there. Okay.
Oh, nice.
Is that WASD? That's a really cute way of doing like a little tutorial. That's nice. I like that. Sort of integrating in the game world. You know, taking stuff they've learned from the first coursework and applying it to the second. That's good. Contextual button prompts telling us when we can do things. Press space to read signs. Wait, seems like you figured that out. Nice. Cool little transitions, little pops of sound effects and things as we get near things. Lovely little background music. You can shoot fireballs using your left mouse button. Isn't that funky? That is funky, yeah. Okay, we've got some flaming skull things. One of them screaming help. Someone save me from this demon. Slightly slow text, but you know. Maybe. Oh, okay, good. We can accelerate. Perfect. And again, sort of reaffirming that we have to left mouse click to do this thing. Whoop, oh god, it's running towards us. So again, nice touch that it doesn't start doing that until we've attacked it. Maybe that's foreshadowing at something. Who can possibly say? I think if we try and walk off without talking to them. Yeah, they have some managed agency there as well.
Okay.
So this is Wispy. He's a guardian spirit sent to help guide lost souls. I see that you are another poor lost soul. We've got a lot of lost souls in this batch. This world is inhabited by dangerous demons. Looking at the fight, you should be able to handle them easily. Kill the demons. Killing the demons not only helps save the world, but also gives us both extra strength. And strength will be much needed. But we must hurry. Okay, cool. So kill the demons, save the world. What could possibly be simpler than that?
Yeah.
So move quickly, kill demons, gather strength. More demons, strong as you. Oh, look at him being all flattering and nice.
Okay.
It doesn't seem to be attacking us again, so you know, maybe it's not as scary as it first seems, but oh, there we go. Just run around. Bop, bop. There we go. Notice that when you kill a demon, both you and I can use their life to gain strength. Okay, so it's run away, but we've not actually killed it yet, so...
So you...
So I can just chase it.
It implies you can choose to kill it.
But I mean, this thing's told us that we should kill it, right? So, there we go. We've both gone up in strength. That will have no negative consequences, I'm sure. Ooh. There we go. See, we're amazing. We're so brave and strong and good. Keep this up and have... Ooh.
Oh wow.
The market is closed today. I've got some lovely crisp apples for passing travellers. Take one to replenish your health, or another if you're especially low. Leave at least half for the others. You know what? Yes, I will take an apple. That's lovely. Press E to take one. Take some more apples. You know, I don't think I need them. I think I'm doing fine. I'm just gonna...
So, Wispy looks like it is a bit of a... not a good spirit.
That is an excellent point, yeah. So we've got like a little bit of foreshadowing that maybe he's not super nice. I'm liking the character design though. Like the fact that they've all got different coloured limbs is kind of cute. What? Hang on. What's this here then? Some young whippersnapper on my patch? I'm not going to keep doing that. Don't you worry ahead too much, I'm just joking with you. Welcome to my garden. The pansies have come up lush this year, aren't they a sight? Only problem here is that... I'm going to do it by accident at this rate. There's some weeds. My back's too stiff to deal with them. Would you lend a hand? I've seen 5 today. If you get rid of them all... Okay. Let's hurry and pick up all the weeds, then we can get going. Okay, so even Wispy is saying let's pick these weeds.
Yeah, okay.
There's one. Was that all 5? I lost count.
I think there was one...
Oh, no, there it is.
Yeah.
Oh, there's more. More have popped up. Would you mind helping some more? So this way. So yeah, Wispy's like, don't bother. What are you doing? The gate is open, we need to go. Oh, come on. It's going to take me 5 seconds to get some...
Okay.
So again, sort of narrative, or rather, stuff we're doing within the game world. So picking these extra weeds means we're getting different and extra dialogue from the characters. That's kind of nice. Thanks again. Even more have showed up. I mean... It's getting a little silly. You can handle the rest. I mean, As long as this is really the last lot, then I'll just do these.
Yeah.
But then we really do have to go and save the world. There we go. Let's go. Can't believe we spent... So yep, dialogue's changing based on what we did. If we don't make it in time, we'll be stuck here. Honestly, this doesn't seem like a terrible place to be stuck.
Yeah.
Little graveyard area up here. Can we read any
The,
of these?
the graphics are really
Yeah, they're nicely put
fit.
together.
Yeah.
I mean, the characters kind of like stand out a bit from the backgrounds, but in a way that's really nice because they sort of, you know, they what's the graphic design word? They pop. You can sort of see who's like worth talking to and things like that. There's a marvelous treasure. Magical ring. Let's go take a look at the magical ring. Ooh, we've got to take it. Getting us both to the gate in one piece will be no small feat. Don't take it, it's all they have left. Should we take it?
We already did a few good things.
Oh, you reckon we've banked enough karma that we can take the magic? I mean, that's true. You know, we need to save the world. We'll do the typical RPG thing and just rummage through people's stuff and take the magical rings. There we go.
We will return it later.
Yeah, exactly. We'll bring it back once we've saved the world. Okay. Hello. Please, can you spare some of your life energy? We're about to fade and we don't want to. Don't listen to them. If we give them their health, we might not survive. Demons, something. Oh, these are baby demons apparently as well.
Ah.
Well, let's trust Wispy. I mean, they've never lied to us before, so.
Yeah.
See, we saw past their deceitful lies. Demons are sly creatures, and exactly. See, you know, not like Wispy. We're smart enough to see through their tricks. Okay, so I think we're sort of deep into the game enough that we can start looking at the mark scheme.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna lower the game volume just a wee bit as well, because there's some lovely background music, but again, I don't want it to cover up everything we're saying. Okay. Path is guarded by terrible demons. Quick, kill them, meet them. Oh, so Wispy's just getting the hell out of here. Go ahead and get home. Ah, that's a bit of a shame. We didn't actually fight the demons, we just walked past them and got over here.
Yeah.
You see, our world is a test for all souls like you who pass through. Only those who stick to their virtues and do not fall to sin may leave. So let us recount the sins you committed and the virtues you stuck to. We showed temperance and avoided gluttony by not taking... So each of these different things is based on one of the 7 deadly sins or the 7 heavenly virtues. You know, it's a bit of a well-used trope, but it's nice. We showed diligence and avoided sloth by picking every single weed. We showed envy by nicking the ring. We showed greed by not willingly sharing our health. And you didn't even let your pride lead you to kill others. You showed humility over pride, realizing that flattery is not a proof of true admiration. So I think we can definitely see which of the fables that they've based this off as well.
Yeah.
Therefore I cannot let you leave. If you wish to go, you must first defeat me. I'm weaker than I'd like since you didn't commit all of the sins. However, you still stand no chance of defeating me. Come on, friend. Okay.
Wow.
Ooh, so we got like a proper boss fight. So he's possessed this skull. There's sort of like explosions and stuff going off. Ah.
Oh.
It's interesting that he also follows the same path as the demon, so he won't start chasing you until.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's in a way good because you don't get unexpected.
Yeah, he's still attacking you with these things, but sort of introduces one thing at a time, so that's really nice. So I'm going to try and complete a boss fight while still doing the marking.
Let's start with that. So the first criteria is presentation, information design, and aesthetics. And to me it looks like it's quite well presented. Like you have the health up top, the graphics are consistent. I guess there's audio effects.
Yeah, so there's some sort of ambient music as we're wandering through the world. It ramps up to boss music when we sort of get into the final fight. There's even just like UI cues as the texts popping up and things like that. It's really well put together. I think we definitely start by looking at the excellent category and see sort of how many of those it meets.
Yeah, so excellent would be key information is shown clearly, consistent and appealing graphics, and good use of audio.
I mean, yeah, it's easily there. So, like the key information, we've got our hearts, we've got the even stuff like the sort of tutorial bits and things like that. It's clear who's speaking when we get to, like when we have the. Actually, that's the point. I don't think I read any signs after we got to this point. When we've got these text boxes, like it's clear who's speaking because they put a little picture next to each one.
Yeah, it's quite nicely shown the information. So they definitely have excellent. What about praiseworthy then, which is novel yet clear ways of showing key information, consistent and thematically resonant graphics, and excellent use of both audio effects and music.
Ooh.
So,
do you know what? I think it might be there. Like thematically resonant, like all of the different sort of like types of graphics that they've used, like the wisps and the demons and things like that, all fit really well into the story they're trying to tell.
yeah, and
they use both effects and stuff. They use that. I don't know if like how sort of novel some of the different sort of information, key information is shown. Like hearts are a sort of tried and tested concept, but stuff like the. But I think the fact that they've sort of done it all so well, I think probably sits it in praiseworthy. Like particularly like just the stuff like having a picture of whoever's talking and stuff to make that extra clear and things like that. I think push it into that category.
Yeah, small things that add up in the end. So yeah, I'll write it down as praiseworthy. The next sub-criteria is gameplay. And
so
excellent here would be a wide set of complementary mechanics and intuitive and smooth usable controls that lead to enjoyable and meaningful play.
Yeah, definitely meaningful play. So we've got the sort of like the combat mechanics, so fighting the demons and stuff that builds into the final boss battle with Wispy. We've got the sort of going around and sort of interacting with the world, whether it's pinching a ring or weeding stuff. Again, like not necessarily hugely complex, but there's enough like little pieces and stuff that get put together that it works nicely together.
Yeah, I think the same. Yeah, so there's a few mechanics, controls. I assume they look quite smooth.
Yeah, the controls are very very nicely put together as well. So I mean, yeah, let's have a look at excellent again and see where that leaves us.
So excellent. Wait, you want me to read out excellent, right?
Yeah.
So it's a wide set of complementary mechanics, intuitive and smooth usable controls that lead to enjoyable and meaningful play.
So I don't think there's necessarily a wide set of different mechanics. There's definitely a set of mechanics that are sort of working like well sort of together and things like that. So perhaps we put it between good and excellent. What do you think?
So it definitely has smooth and usable controls and meaningful that lead to meaningful play. And the mechanic. So what can you do? You can shoot and do quests and make the choices, which are.
Yeah, and a lot of those choices are made, I guess, sort of diegetically through the gameplay, which I quite like.
Yeah, So
Okay, managing agency again. They won't let us progress until we've made this choice.
yeah, okay, so yeah, it does sound like it's either between good and excellent or towards towards excellent.
Yeah, I think it's probably halfway between the two. Like, there's like maybe they could have added sort of some extra complexity in like some of the different sort of choices and things that are made, but I think overall, like, it's definitely between the two.
Yeah. And any bugs that you noticed?
Haven't noticed any, no.
Yeah.
And I think it's definitely reasonably complex. So that one I think we can sort of comfortably put in excellent.
Yeah, so excellent is game is playable and reasonably complex. There are no obvious bugs. And I'm not sure if the game is playable and is of higher complexity. So higher complexity. Wow. I'm reading through the story, through the what Wisp says. Oh wow, okay. So because you did all the bad things, now the boss is stronger.
And so I really like there that they sort of lay out the consequences of your choices, so exactly how sort of like every choice you made at every step sort of has had an impact. And yeah, he's definitely seems more powerful, so we're getting more of these explosions. I think you need him moving faster. So that's
Yeah,
really
yeah, but it's excellent. Is it very higher complexity or just reasonably complex? Yeah, I think it's mostly...
I'm going to say reasonably complex for the same reason that I put them between good and excellent for the gameplay. Like, there's like definitely sort of a bunch of stuff going on, but there's always scope for sort of adding additional things to it. Come here, the Sin of Wrath. That was extremely wrathful.
Wow. Okay, so the next criteria would be the story engine. How the story affects the narrative and how the narrative affects the story.
So I think we've definitely seen clear evidence of both of those happening here. So when we make certain choices within the gameplay, so like picking those extra weeds or things like that, it changes the dialogue and it makes characters react differently to us as we go through. If we take all of the apples, for example, we get a bit of extra dialogue from the merchant saying, I'm sure there were more apples here earlier, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And likewise, like obviously, making some of those narrative choices affects the gameplay at the end. So the Wispy being stronger and things like that. Like again, maybe there could have been sort of that bit could have been sort of particularly highlighted in some way, but I think that's a really solid way of doing it.
Yeah. So yeah, let's start with good would be an effective story engine that is integrated with the game world. So I think they have that. And excellent would be an effective story engine that is well integrated with the game world. There are many examples where the story impacts the game world and is impacted by events from the game world. So many examples. Yeah, it feels like there are quite a lot of...
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
Yeah, I think it's excellent for this, for story engine, because Prizeworthy would be a sophisticated story engine, well integrated with the game world in a diverse way. Yeah, so it feels like it's in the excellent category.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. So yeah, so the next bit is agency, right? So agency and branching and things like that.
Yeah, and from what I've seen, there's quite a few places where they manage the player agency.
Yeah,
And
so so we get again the sort of like physical management of agency where they won't let you through certain areas until you've had certain conversations and things like that. There's trying to think of other ways of managing agency within this. I think that's probably the main one.
Yeah.
There's not really any example of like much false agency from what I can tell. Most of the actual choices you make do have an impact. And in terms of branching, it's kind of interesting in that there's no sort of major branch in the story, but each small choice you make sort of leads towards sort of like the final all basically has a direct impact on the final choice in some way, even if it's just a small one. So it doesn't necessarily change it kind of changes the epilogue a bit. I guess it mostly just gets tallied up as to whether your vices outweigh your virtues. So yeah, it's a really interesting way of doing that whole branching narrative, and it's one that I don't think have seen much of.
Yeah. So let me see. For example, excellent here would be an interactive story with several branching points, some interesting choices, and an effective system for managing player agency, like topology, narrative patterns, illusion of choice, etc.
So that's the other important thing that we should talk about, is those choices, are they actually interesting? And I think a lot of them are. So like the Apple one, for example, we've got this choice of, we've been asked not to take too many. We know that we shouldn't, but we're being told that, maybe, like, firstly, it's interesting because it starts revealing Wispy's character a little bit, but also we can sort of lean into it's going to give us extra health, we're going to need that extra health later, so I'll do this immoral thing for a, like, immediate bonus kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and like similar for this
I think
right?
the same. The choices are...
And similarly, there's the sort of diegetic choices where you can sort of fight a demon and then it will stop attacking you and run away. So you have to make that choice to chase it down and kill it properly to steal its health. So that's a really good way of doing it as well. So it's not all just the press E to interact and do a thing. You've got that choice to make in gameplay, which also makes it really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. So let's see. Yeah, so they have interesting choices. And so the branching points, as you said, there aren't branching points like diverging the whole story, but there are tiny choices that change the ending.
Yeah, and I guess that's sort of how they've managed the player's agency, right? So they don't have to worry about these giant branching points and sort of effectively writing two separate stories depending on what choice you make. It's just they have little effects on, for example, that final scene. So I guess that's a really good example of the way they've managed agency. So I mean, arguably, so what is prizeworthy?
Prizeworthy would be an interactive story with a network of interesting choices and an effective system for managing player agency using more than one method. So
that's the thing. They don't necessarily have that network of things. They have a number of different choices that have sort of one place where all those consequences come true. But otherwise, I certainly think this is in the excellent category.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. So excellent.
And then next we're looking at thematics and pacing, right?
Poetics.
Yeah, sort of thematics and poetics. So how well did it sort of fit the fable they were going for? And I'm pretty sure I'm safe in saying that it's is it The Wolf and the Crane is the name of the story, where it's all about not giving in to flattery if somebody's trying to manipulate you and that kind of thing.
It's interesting because they say another fable.
Do they? Do they call it The Lion and the...
No, not that one. They say the owl and the grasshopper.
Wait, no, sorry, it's The Owl and the Grasshopper that's about the flattery. I was coming up with the wrong title. The Wolf and the Crane's all about not necessarily doing good deeds for somebody that means you harm, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, I stand by what I said. I just messed up the title.
Yeah. So yeah, and I think it fits well with that fable. Please let me leave. I'm sorry.
There we go. Every single virtue.
Wow.
It's kind of a shame that you don't get a special thing for being like super virtuous or super viceful. But you know, not the end of the world. Okay, so okay. So with that in mind, yes, I think the themes of the story definitely, like, there's obviously the sort of theme of Wispy's flattery sort of woven throughout it, and it's nice that they hint at his true sort of motivations, so that it's not just because, you know, typically in a game, if somebody's being nice to you, that's just because they're nice.
Yeah.
So it's nice that they hint at his motivation in a way without giving the entire game away.
Yeah, definitely. So let's see. For example, excellent here would be narrative and gameplay support one another as the mechanics emphasize the themes of the story. Which I think, it mostly has that.
Yeah, I think it probably does. So, like, the choices that you make, so I know we spoke about, you know, whether they're interesting choices, and because it's about, you know, like, powering up your character and things like that at the behest of somebody sort of, you know, flattering you and all of that. Yeah, I think that works quite well. It's also kind of interesting, so I didn't point this out before, but, like, if you pick all of the good, like, all of the virtues rather than the vices, you end the game on half a heart, so you have to do the entire final boss battle on just half a heart. But the way they balance that is because you've made these choices, the boss is easier to defeat, so that's a really nice way of doing it as well.
Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah, sorry, was that good or excellent?
So that was excellent. And praiseworthy in this case would be narrative and gameplay reinforce one another as elements of the story, and narrative and gameplay reinforce one another as elements of the story are conveyed through the experience of play.
So this would be sort of like if the mechanics of the game itself sort of absolutely reinforces that theme, and I'm not sure it necessarily meets that. Sort of a lot of the mechanics are, you know, the more sort of traditional kind of gameplay and stuff. There are elements of that in the, like I say, the sort of diegetic choices about directly hunting down the demons. But I think that's probably what solidifies it in the excellent rather than sort of reaching up to the praiseworthy.
Yeah.
It would be a very difficult one to do with this sort of, you know, not giving into flattery, sort of building that into the mechanics somehow. So, I think we sort of say, yeah, I would probably call that an excellent. What do you think?
Yeah, it feels like it fits there nicely. In the excellent category.
So I hadn't noticed this dialogue tree before. So if you immediately say no, then he gets sad, and the only choice you're left with is yes. So again, another really nice way of managing agency.
Yeah. Because you have to make the choice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. So yeah, now we go to techniques. And I feel like, so excellent here would be ascending pacing with more than one pick, and appropriate and consistent use of more than one writing techniques, like dialogues, in-game information, scripted events, cutscenes, etc.
So, interestingly, I think this might be the thing they do slightly poorer on, just because they're... So, what techniques have we got? We've got the dialogue between characters and things like that. We've arguably got the storytelling through those sort of diegetic techniques, like the demons running away after they're defeated.
Yeah.
What other techniques have we got?
So
I think they are the main ones.
Yeah. Dialogues.
I think we definitely have the sort of ascendant pacing to a degree as we go through some of these things. But it's kind of interesting. So we sort of fight some demons at the start, and then virtually everything up until the final boss is just sort of talking to people and interacting with the world. Like, for example, if we took this ring up here, and then they turned angry and sort of attacked us for it or something like that, and we had to fight our way out, that would sort of up the stakes again and up the pacing and things like that.
Yeah.
So I think we've definitely got the clear final peak at the end with the big boss fight, standard way of doing a really good thing, and then sort of the nice epilogue sequence after that where where we sort of pass on, if you like. There is, I would say, ascendant pacing up to that, because you're sort of making progressively... I don't know, the choices are all... I think the main one that raises the stakes, I guess, is giving up a whole bunch of your life force to those small spirits and things like that, or letting them die. Like, that does kind of up the stakes a bit, so I'm happy to say there's some ascendant pacing, but I don't think they have those sort of multiple sort of peaks and troughs of drama and gameplay sort of playing together as well. So what would a good be for this?
So a good is ascending pacing with a clear final peak and use of more than one game writing techniques. Which, yeah, it does feel like...
I think that's probably where it fits. Because we've got the dialogues, we've got sort of to an extent the environmental storytelling and through, like I say, some aspects of the gameplay. I don't think we've got any cutscenes or anything like that sort of setting the scene.
Yeah.
I mean, arguably you could say we've started like in medias res because we're just sort of dropped in this world with no real fanfare, but that might be a bit of a reach.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, it feels like it's in the good category.
Yeah, okay, cool.
It fits there. The final one is the feedback.
So what feedback were they given and how did they respond?
So the main point of the feedback received was to ensure the underlying story engine works and that the player choices affect the game world. We did this through differing narratives from NPCs based upon your choices. Your choices also impact the strength of the final boss you face and of course the ending you receive. Which I think they've done quite well in this case.
Yeah.
So another point in the labs was that we need to think about player incentives for doing things. So we put the players more against our character Wispy. Most of the choices that are more virtuous will seem like the more moral choice. For example, not taking more apples, helping an old man, or saving dying spirits. But to also try and persuade the player to follow the more sinful path, Wispy will try and persuade you to commit sins and congratulate you and flood you with praise if you do so. Yeah, so this fits with the O and Grasshopper theme.
Yeah, okay, so I think that first bit of feedback was probably a little bit vague, which was just make sure you've got a story engine in a coursework about story engines. But okay, the second bit I think is like the really impactful one that sort of definitely improved their game a lot, which is how do you make those stories interesting? How do you make sure the player doesn't just always go for the good option because it's the good option? So when you've got like a support character hinting that you should do the bad option, firstly it makes you sort of consider that choice because, oh, maybe I do need all this strength and power to get to the end, and at the same time revealing some of the motivations of that character. So I think that was a really nice way that they've managed to do that. So yeah, I guess sort of let's start at good and see where we go from there. So what would a good be on the feedback?
A good is feedback was articulated and reasonable changes have been successfully made.
Okay, I think it definitely reaches that. Does it reach an excellent?
So feedback was clearly articulated, interpreted, and reasonable changes have been successfully made.
So I think it's probably halfway between the two there, I
Yeah.
would say. Yeah?
Yeah, I was thinking the same, yeah.
Excellent. And yeah, so I think overall this has been like a really, really nice game.
Yeah, definitely a nice job.
Cool. Let's move on. Alright, and this game is The Wedding. So we've got some funky music on the title screen. We've got some characters. I assume they're going to become important as we go. Let's jump right into it. I can't believe you're almost there. Way before any of us too. You're so lucky. Shut it, will you? I'm sure neither of you are that far behind. The two friends share a look with each other. Not even close. I'm way too poor to afford a ring, let alone a wedding. Okay, I get it. Now isn't the time to talk about the wedding. Let's enjoy ourselves tonight. The night's still young, we've got to make the most of it. As you and your friends get closer to the club and hear its booming music, you notice someone having trouble with a couple of drunkards at the entrance. Your friends notice you staring at the situation ahead. Hey, come on, it's your stag do. You can't be even more fashionably late than we already are. I mean, the party doesn't start until I'm there, right? That's the whole point. I can't be late. It's their job, you've got no obligation to interfere, plus you don't want to ruin your pretty face before your own wedding. Are you going to risk having to go to hospital on your stag do? We did all chip in to rent out the club for the entire night for you. Okay, I mean, sure. Okay, so help the bouncer, which includes the tutorial, or leave the bouncer alone. So I guess we're going to go through the tutorial, because we need to know how to play the game. I will say, don't try and help bouncers, they probably won't appreciate it. You will just get in trouble. But okay, let's go help out. You hear your friend get hit. Good. Friend 1 and friend 2, they're my best friends. I like friend 1 the best. Hey, what's going on here? The group turn their attention to you. Yes, I can see how they would be making trouble.
Yeah.
They can't get in because somebody rented out the club. Blah blah blah. I apologise for this, but these people don't seem to understand the situation. Frog bouncer. Ignore the group. Keep eye contact with Tony the bouncer. Is there anything I can do to help? Couldn't possibly ask you to help. I insist. You're ignoring us. Who do you think you are? If you wouldn't mind, could you get my supervisor Ted? Of course. Okay, so we've got A and D, or the arrow keys to move. So again, integrating the tutorial into the game, it's kind of nice. Space up or W to jump. Ooh, the possibilities. And you can double jump as well. S or down to drop through a soft platform, like, ooh, we do a little flip when we double jump, that's kind of nice. I am already having problems. There we go, I made it. And now I'm going to demonstrate how to jump through, and now I won't be able to get back up again. But, hey, oh, we can jump through the platform. Okay. Never mind.
Yeah.
See, I learned something. Good. When a wall looks like this, it means you can jump, and I really like that they've got these sort of little silhouettes of stuff showing you how you, like showing you where to go and what to do. That's kind of nice. Oop. If I can actually manage it. There we go. Whatever you do, don't get hit. So there's a bunch of spikes up there to stop us from trying to jump up there and go that way. Bit of a blind drop. Ooh, that's scary. Oop, nope, it's coming back this way. Okay. Dun dun dun. Oop. Oh. Whew. Is that a platform? I'm going to assume it is. It is. It's like really angry bats. Oh no, we got hit. And now an angry bee. Oh, now you want me to do wall jumping around an angry bee. Hello, Ted. Ted, why is your office in a cave full of angry bees and bats? What do you want? Club being rented out. Blah blah blah. So, I mean, graphics-wise, I do like the graphics. I like that all the characters are kind of quirky and unique, and they, you know, the drunks are all of these spiky, definitely not Goombas, and Ted's a frog. It doesn't really feel like, you know, we're in a club, though. It feels like we're in a Mario level or something like that.
Yeah, I mean... yeah, that's actually true. Maybe the club is a very big one.
Yeah, it's true.
There's a lot of stuff in it.
So this is it. So this is interesting. He, you know, we've done a good deed for him. He says, "Oh, I'd love to pay you back. Can I have an invitation to your wedding?" Like, that's not paying me back. It's me having to find an extra chair and interesting that was all starred out. I wonder if that's foreshadowing something, or just they didn't want to make up an address. Wave at Tony, walk into the club, your friends spot you. You're not dead. Of course not. What do you take me for? I'm glad you're okay. Enough of that, let's go party. Sitting up on your bed, you check the time. You pause for a moment. It finally hits you. You're going to be late. Dun dun dun. It's 5 hours until your wedding. You rush to get ready. And we're immediately attacked by a... so that's nice. I thought we were going to get attacked straight away, but it stops here. Oh, and we've only got 20 seconds, so I shouldn't dilly-dally. Hip there. Hip. Hip.
Oh, that's a lot of...
Oh, there we go.
Ah.
Suddenly you see a silhouette dash past you, leaving. So now we've only got 4.5 hours to go. I think if we'd have ran out of time there, we'd have lost a bunch more extra time. Come back, that's mine. So we can continue running to the wedding and basically skip to the next level, or we can try and retrieve the camera. If we succeed, we'll lose 1.5 hours. If we fail, we'll lose 2 hours. Or we can ignore it and just play it safe. But no, let's try and do the good deed. So 1.5 hours. Okay,
that would leave us with 3.
Ow. So I think if we, die or don't make it in time, then we just fail, and not only do we...
Oh.
Heck. Okay. Maybe I'll cleverly die just to demonstrate that fact. Okay, I'm gonna wait until it's there, and then run.
Oh.
Jeebus. What are you trying to do to me?
It's getting hard.
I got killed. You can't do that. Oh, okay, so maybe we just restart, or maybe... Wait. Or is this a new level?
So it's the same level.
Oh yeah, it's the same level. So I don't know if this counts as like an immediate failure, and we just still have to get to the end anyway, or whether...
Maybe, you failed once, so you... But you still have to go to the...
Oh yeah, now I'm racing through it. I don't like that these things keep shooting at me while I'm stuck on a wall. But we made it. Ooh, what was that up there? I wonder if we can get... Oh no. I was going to say, let's go look for secrets, but let's not. We've only got a minute left. If there had been spikes down there, I would have screamed. Okay. Got B. Got... Ooh,
oh. Yeah, okay, let's... I would start looking at the...
Yeah, please, let's start going through the mark scheme before I throw my computer into a well.
The first criteria is presentation, like information design and aesthetics. So I can see a heart, your health on the left corner and a timer on the right corner.
We also get the sort of in the choice sections, we show clearly how much overall time we've got left and the impact those decisions will have, which is kind of nice.
The graphics, they feel...
The graphics are put together nicely. I don't know if I'll call them, like thematically resonant. There's a very big disconnect between the story that seems to be being told and, why we're avoiding bats in a cave, but... got to take some liberties with gameplay and whatnot. But yeah, and overall the graphics are really nice. The music... There's some background music. There's not much in the way of sound effects. And the music is a little bit, again, slightly disjointed from what we're seeing and doing. So like it's a really sort of light, upbeat, cheerful sounding music. It doesn't sound very urgent.
Yeah, that would be...
So maybe it ramps up as we get to later levels. Otherwise, so what would a good be in this instance?
Good would be key information is shown clearly, graphics are consistent, and appropriate use of audio effects.
Okay, so So as I say, I don't think the audio is maybe the best that could have been chosen, but like as just sort of background music, it's fine.
What about audio effects, like getting hit or?
So yeah, there aren't any, which is kind of disappointing. Graphics-wise, though, like I said, what would excellent be just sort of in terms of graphics?
For graphics, it would be consistent and appealing graphics.
And that's it. I definitely think the graphics hit that. I think maybe the use of sound might drag it down to the good, because we've got some music that's not like super fitting. Like I say, it's fine. Could be better, but no effects otherwise. But equally, the information like design is quite good as well. So I'd say probably either good or between good and excellent.
Yeah, I think it's between those two.
Yeah, I can't be too critical of it.
So next one is the gameplay, which includes mechanics and controls. So how do the controls feel?
So I was going to say, as much as I'm struggling, the controls feel fine. Like the running and jumping feels really smooth and nice. I'd maybe say that the balance in some of these levels is a little bit off. But the controls themselves feel good. Mechanics-wise, we've got a number of different enemies that behave in a number of different ways. We've got running, jumping, wall jumping, all of that good stuff. We've got the timer, we've got the different number of hearts, we've got the sort of intermediary choices about sort of which level you go to next and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think there's a set of complementary mechanics, that's for sure. Would we say it's a wide set?
I'm not entirely sure if it's a wide set, or maybe it feels like it's close to that.
Okay, so I guess let's read out the rest of that. So that'd be excellent, right? So what else would they have to do to meet excellent in that way?
So intuitive and smooth usable controls that lead to enjoyable and meaningful play.
You know what? It might actually be there. Oh, thank goodness for that. Upon returning, you see the victim sitting on a bench with their head down. So it's now 3 hours to our wedding, so it's gone down by 1.5. Okay, so dying in the level didn't affect this. So we successfully completed it. There we go. So hey, would you look at that? We've helped out a photographer. I wonder if he'll be able to help us out at all. Oh, there we go. Couldn't afford a photographer, but that's nice. Okay, so I got distracted. Where were we? Did we settle on between good and excellent, or?
Yeah. So.
Okay, that was a bit.
So for excellent, there need to be intuitive and smooth usable controls that lead to meaningful and enjoyable play. And
I am gonna say, let's say between the two. Partly due to sort of this level, so the sort of blind jumping into sort of stuff I can't see takes away from the meaningful play a little bit.
Okay.
Well, I mean, and yeah, maybe they're like the set of mechanics may be slightly limited, but otherwise, I think they're actually, yeah. Let's just put them between the two. I think it's a good set of stuff. Room for improvement, but otherwise, it's pretty good.
Yeah. Oh wow, 1.5 hours you're waiting.
Yep.
That's quite. So any bugs?
Not that well, other than the sort of occasional sort of sticking on platforms and stuff that's kind of inherent to doing some platformers in Unity. I haven't noticed any sort of major bugs or anything like that.
Okay.
Do we help? So if we fail, we're going to be late.
Yeah.
If we succeed, we have to be at the wedding sort of for the next. So that's kind of tricky because it doesn't. We don't know how far away our wedding is. So if there's another level after this, and I pick this, we're screwed.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
exactly.
gamble. I'm gonna say I can help them and make it in time because I want the best ending. Okay, yeah, so the next one is bugs. Game's reasonably complex.
Yeah,
there's different enemies, different stuff going on.
Enemy behavior, yeah.
That's...
Wow. Oh. Huh, okay.
Wait, hang on, so there's nothing down here?
Oh no, that's not good.
Okay, yeah, So, do we have to go... Okay, either a bug or an oddly designed level. I think this sort of solidifies what we were saying about some of perhaps the level choices affecting the play. Even then, you could sort of argue that it's all about running through the level and finding it within this time, but that feels a bit punishing. Just adding an entirely dead end into your level.
Yeah. So yeah, bugs. So
yeah,
the game.
Yep, another dead end.
Oh. Okay. Yeah. So from the bugs perspective, the game is playable and is reasonably complex, and there are only minor bugs, and they are uncommon.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair and fitting.
That would be good. And excellent is the game is playable and is reasonably complex and no obvious bugs.
You know what? I think it probably hits that. Like, there is enough stuff going on that I haven't noticed any sort of major. Well, I haven't noticed any bugs at all other than these ones.
Yeah.
Okay, so next is sort of the how well they met the brief, how well they're telling a story through the game. So, story engine. We have...
I mean, yeah, we still haven't completed the game once to know how...
Alright. But I think we can say with some amount of certainty that... So, if, for example, we don't complete the game in this amount of time, that will change the story.
Yeah.
So, we can definitely see it going in one way. I suspect as well that... so we can also say that the...
Wait, what if you go to the left?
Oh, if I go to the left? Oh, I don't know if I can go to the left. Actually, whoops. Oh yeah, this is just that dead end. Okay. If I go to the left here, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, if they have put the actual route straight left of there, I'm going to be annoyed. That would be sneaky.
Yeah, so let's see.
So, choices in the story, do they affect the gameplay? Arguably, yes, although most of that effect is just, do you skip a level or not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
what would a good be for story
engine? A good would be an effective story engine, which is integrated with the game world, where there are some examples where the story impacts the game world and is impacted by events from the game world. So let's see, for example, I assume that the ending would be impacted by whether you chose to help people or not, and whether you were late and how late you were.
Yeah, so we do have their game notes, so even if I am objectively terrible at platformers, we should be able to see what they were planning on.
Maybe not there.
I don't know.
Or...
The fact that there's two... No? See?
No.
I thought that, oh, if they've made that route really difficult, that must be the real route, but nope.
Yeah, what do we think here? So, is it integrated with the story engine, integrated with the game world?
And I think that's the partly yes. I think some of it is perhaps not. So, for example, the narrative choices you make basically just skip a level if you take it. So there's not necessarily a lot of effect on the gameplay. I don't know whether the timer changes based on your if I skip a level, do I have extra time for the next one or something like that?
I assume that when you if you just decide to skip everything, then you get to the wedding with, I guess, let's say 3 hours to spare, but you don't have anything. You don't have a photographer or a chef, so you don't have food, I guess, or something. And yeah, in that case, you can clearly see how the choices you made impact.
So that's the thing.
The
There's sort
game.
of like narrative choices you make that impact the narrative, and there's sort of an extension to that in that how fast you complete the level sort of dictates how successful those narrative choices are. I'm not sure there's a huge difference in sort of gameplay depending on what sort of choices we make, I guess, other than, you know, getting an extra level or two.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, so for good, does it? Which way round does that? Sorry, is
So for good, it would be an effective story engine that is integrated with the game world, where there are some examples where the story impacts the game world and is impacted by events.
So what would a satisfactory be?
Satisfactory would be a simple story engine that has limited integration with the game world. There are some examples where the story impacts the game world or is impacted by events
So
from the game world.
I think it's probably a bit better than that.
Yeah. Oh, not there. So maybe, yeah, it definitely has.
So perhaps
Both.
between satisfactory and good, what do you think?
Yeah, yeah. It sounds not quite up to good, but still.
If I land on something and it kills me, I'm going to scream.
Okay. So, yeah, between satisfactory and good for that. Next one. Oh.
I guess we found them, or we just ran out of time. I wasn't.
No. I think you had quite a lot.
Okay, good. Good.
Okay.
I mean, you could drive me to my wedding. That would be great. I
Ah.
blah blah. Okay, so this is the chef, I guess. That's so handy.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very lucky.
I don't know why it stars that out. Just make up a name.
Yeah. Wait, yeah.
Hey, drives, excellent. We get the best ending. We hurry down the aisle. Not too long after, smiles. Vicar begins the speech. Do you?
And now it's
Dun dun dun! The bride's ex shows up. Ah, if only we had a bouncer.
Ah. Okay. If you insist, you can go first.
Alright, so let's call that a final climax. It's interesting that it all sort of plays out in this cutscene. Okay. And there's no sort of hinting of that particular piece of drama sort of anywhere else, but, you know, it's a surprise twist, I guess. Do you, pink lady in a dress, take blue man in a visor as your lawfully wedded husband? Do you man in a full blue bodysuit take lady with bunny ears? Nice. There we go. Okay. Good. So now we can say that we've seen right to the end of the game. I've totally forgotten where we were. We were on. So we said story engine was there. Next thing is agency, right?
Yeah.
So how are they managing agency? So we have a number of options sort of throughout the thing. The branches. affect sort of a level of the gameplay and then sort of tie into who shows up at the thing. I'm going to see if I can sort of speed run through all of this and get a bad ending just so we can sort of compare.
Yeah. So it's, again, you make a choice and it diverges immediately. So it's like a number of small, in a sense, choices that in the end impact everything.
Yeah. There we go.
So let's see, agency. An interactive story with several branching points would be good. Some interesting choices and a few attempts to manage player agency.
So how are they managing agency, I guess, is the main question, because there are definitely a number of sort of choices that branch how this game ends. They're not, again, necessarily what's the word I'm looking for? All this platforming has fried my brain a bit. They don't necessarily diverge the story a whole lot, but they will affect sort of the story at the end. They've managed agency mostly through sort of these different things. There's no sort of gating in the levels. It's more that if you make a choice, I guess you could say they sort of affect it with the timer in each level and the overall clock of time ticking down to your wedding. So if, for example, I failed one of those, I wouldn't have enough time to do this. So I have then the choice to make as to whether should I be late or should I not. And again, you've got that sort of gambling. Even if you successfully do everything for this last one here, you only just have enough time to do it. So you have to gamble onto whether you think you can make it perfectly without messing up.
Yeah.
So the choices are kind of interesting because they're kind of meta choices. They're like, do you as a player believe you are skilled enough to beat this level in this amount of time, kind of thing. It's not necessarily narrative choices, but they've kind of worked in that theme of, you know, being late and stuff in the narrative into the sort of gameplay thing. So I think that kind of works. So what would a good be for agency? And
so for agent, a good would be an interactive story with several branching points, some interesting choices, and a few attempts to manage player agency.
So what do you think? Do you think that's probably where it hits, or is it a little bit higher or a little bit lower?
So, for example, Satisfactory doesn't have the attempts to manage player agency, while Excellent has an effective system for managing player agency. So I feel it's between those two. So in the end, around good.
Okay, yeah. I think that's probably a fair assessment of it. Cool, so next is...
next is Poetics.
Yeah, Poetics and the theme. So what fable did they sort of talk about being inspired by for this game?
So I would say it feels like the Lion and the Mouse, because you want to do good things, but
at possible cost to yourself, I guess.
Yeah. So do they say it somewhere? I don't think so. They haven't mentioned the story, but I assume it's the Lion and the Mouse.
Yeah, that definitely seems the closest fit. Sorry, I'm just seeing what happens in the story.
Yeah.
I'm compelled by this.
Yeah.
Alright, we barely win. The bride, are we okay? It's just a flesh wound. Yep, so everything otherwise continues as normal.
But you don't have.
But we don't have a photograph because we didn't have a photographer.
Yeah,
That's nice. I like that. So I was going to say, like, are all the different characters shown? But of course, we don't even have the photo.
yeah, exactly.
Nice. Okay. And again, so yeah, we can see that the things that happen in the gameplay or other than narrative definitely carry through to the ending. Okay, so if it is the lion and the mouse theme that they're going for, yeah, we've got that choice to do good deeds, not without necessarily the promise of reward, but then that sort of comes back to us at the end to help. It's a bit of a shame that the help at the end isn't sort of carried out through the gameplay. So like when we saw that first ending and the bouncer just beats up the X that tries to storm the wedding, like it's got a narrative impact, I guess, but it's a shame that we don't have, you know, like in the final level the bouncer comes back to help us beat up one of those rhinos, or you know, like something of that where we see the impact within the gameplay as well. I'm just going to try being late and see what happens.
Yeah, so they say that there are 5 different ending photographs.
So
Yeah.
sorry, for theme, what would a good be?
For the weddings, a good would be narrative and gameplay complement one another, as the key mechanics are in keeping with the themes of the story.
Ooh, so this is the thing. In terms of doing the good deeds, I would say the sort of mechanics don't really fit, because all of the sort of choices about, you know, doing good things and like that mostly occur within these purely narrative sort of cutscene segments. However, because they've directly tied that to their interpretation of the story and the, you know, being late and do you do this extra bit of like work effectively, like in a limited amount of time, it kind of pulls it back together. Although actually something that I also was going to say earlier is sort of just skipping a big bit of gameplay is rarely something your players will want to do. So again, that kind of sort of maybe hinders some of the agency they got given, because if they want to make a particular choice, they miss out on a big chunk of the game.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe have the... I mean, yeah, I was going to suggest the easier choice where you don't lose time. You have an easier platformer or something like that, but I guess you still get the same thing here.
Yeah. So
like
you get
there's
the same...
always those platformer levels that are between the choices.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
You can choose to do another one.
Okay, so do we think this sort of sits around the good? Or perhaps between satisfactory and good?
So in this case, satisfactory would be that narrative and gameplay do not interfere with one another, but the key mechanics have little to do with the themes of the story.
And I think it might be sort of verging towards that again, because they've tied the consequences of doing a good deed to the story that they're trying to tell, and therefore you have to run through the level faster. I will say that. So on the one hand, it's kind of a shame that, you know, failing a level by losing hearts doesn't have an impact on the story. Like, you know, you show up sort of beaten and bloodied and your shirt's torn and that kind of thing, or you just fail that level and take the time penalty. But given how much I was failing, I'm glad they didn't do that.
Yeah.
So I kind of think between satisfactory and good.
Yeah, it does sound like that.
Cool.
Yeah. So the next one is techniques that they've used.
Okay, so we have these cutscenes and things like that. We don't have any sort of, again, environmental storytelling or anything sort of throughout the game world that we're actually playing in, which is a bit disappointing.
So they do have a final peak at the wedding.
Yeah. Does this also encompass pacing as well?
The criteria is ascending pacing with a clear final peak,
Yeah, so we do kind of have a natural pacing because we've got this ticking clock that's ticking down, which raises the stakes with each level, which is kind of nice. I don't know if it builds really towards, like, again, it sort of builds towards that narrative peak of you reach the wedding. It's kind of a shame that that isn't also carried over in the... Oh, actually, like, each level gets a bit harder, and quite a lot harder as you play through.
Yeah.
So there is definitely ascendant pacing, but again, there's not really a climactic bit at the wedding. I mean, they're kind of like the previous level is, I guess, the gameplay climax.
So now you are actually late.
Yeah. Da-da-da.
And I think that's the same.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting to go through this as well and see what happens if we can do all of the good deeds and then still be late.
That would be, yeah. I guess you just are late, but everything else is the same.
Yeah, and it's one of these things where it's quite easy to sort of like slot in and out sort of like different things that happen, but it means that there's not a dramatic change in the ending, I guess. Anyway, so yeah, pacing.
Yeah.
So definitely ascendant pacing. It does rise to sort of a narrative climax, I guess, but something that maybe could have been strengthened by incorporating it into the gameplay as well.
Yeah.
Techniques-wise, we've got
Dialogue.
mostly sort of cutscene-based sort of dialogue.
Yeah.
A couple of choices, but those choices are mostly just the sort of, you know, do you do this or this? So, what would a good be?
A good would be ascending pacing with a clear final peak and use of more than one game writing techniques.
Okay, and what would a satisfactory be?
Some ascending pacing and use of at least one game writing technique.
So I would be inclined to put this between the two, I think.
Yes, they definitely have covered the satisfactory, and the pacing, I think, puts them a bit higher and how everything...
Yeah, let's say it's definitely building to a final sort of peak. It just doesn't necessarily nail it. And similarly for the writing techniques, we've got this one that's really, really well put together. It's nice. We've got sort of all the different characters popping in and out as they're sort of speaking. That's really good. But they don't have, like, for example, dialogue trees or anything like that that sort of lets us, or environmental storytelling that we can sort of see stuff happening throughout the gameplay as we're playing. But otherwise, it's really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, between the two, and that leaves
The
us with
final
feedback.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. A piece of feedback we received was about making sure the choices we give the player are meaningful and had a reason to pick either option. As our game revolves around the decision whether to help someone or not, without a good enough reason, most players would choose to help, as it would be the most morally right choice and would likely be beneficial to them later on. We decided to choose a wedding scenario where the player wakes up late and has to face the consequences. Another piece of feedback we received was making it clear how each option impacts the game, whether it was in the narrative or user interface. In our game, when the player is running to their wedding and is faced with the choice to help someone or not, they would lose time if they try to help. However, the amount of time they lose depends on how well they perform.
Okay, so
So they decided to add a piece of text next to these choices, stating how much time they would lose.
alright, so yeah, that seems pretty reasonable to me. Like, again, something that we've seen in previous games in this coursework is how do you make those choices more interesting? Because, you know, often players will go for the good choice because most people are good people. So sort of tying it to a, you know, sort of there are going to be consequences for it, or what if you're late to your own wedding, sort of putting that pressure on them. So it's like, if you're going to make this choice, you have to be sure that you can do it, kind of thing.
Yeah,
that's kind of
and
nice.
they say that they've also put based on those two pieces of feedback, they've put the timer on the screen on the top right, because this would mean when the player sees they have less time, they would be more inclined to not help the people they come across.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I think particularly interesting that they've not actually mentioned there is if you offer to help somebody and fail, then you fail and you lose extra time.
Yeah. So again, that's a choice, and it helps you. And it helps make the choices more meaningful in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you didn't have that timer, then you wouldn't have that incentive or that pressure to make one choice over the other. So I think that was pretty well handled. So I mean, yeah, let's kick off with looking at what a good would be.
So a good would be feedback was articulated and reasonable changes have been successfully made.
And I think we're solidly there. Do we think they're maybe in the excellent?
Let's see. So excellent would be feedback was clearly articulated, interpreted, and reasonable changes have been successfully made. So
I think they're part of the way there, if not fully there.
Yeah. It feels.
I think from what I remember of the feedback they were given for this, there's like, yeah, it's sort of about like how much of it they've interpreted it and then extended it there. And I think they've done some sort of good work thinking about how they make those choices interesting. So I would be inclined to say sort of, yeah, like between the two, if not excellent. What do you think?
Yeah, it feels like they did a good job with those two pieces of feedback, and especially with the timer and how that helps make the choices more impactful.
Okay.
Yeah, it's either between good and excellent or fully excellent, so I'm.
You know what? Let's say excellent, because they've interpreted if the feedback they were given was, you know, think about how you're going to make these choices interesting and tie it into your story and gameplay, and they've interpreted it by sort of tying it more directly to that timer. I think they've done a good job. So let's call that.
Yeah.
Let's call that excellent. Which brings us to the end of the marking for this game, and to the end of our marking this batch altogether. So thank you for watching, and we will see you in another video very soon. Bye bye.
Yeah. Bye.